Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. I am so excited to finally be here. I'm grateful for all of you guys being here. You know, when we set out to do this event about 6 months ago, my intention in putting this on was really to bring together some of the very best minds in the industry, coaches and speakers from across the country that could come here and share their wisdom and their ideas. And I think today we have accomplished that. We have Tina Call, who came in from North Carolina. She built one of the top 25 real estate teams in the entire United States. Aaron Novello's coming up from the great state of Florida. He's been my personal coach and mentor for the past 4 years. Over his career, he's sold 2,000 homes in his career, 75% of which are listings sold. I'm excited because if you guys haven't heard these guys speak before, you're truly in for a treat today. So I want to thank all of you guys for coming, and I truly mean that. I think it's really cool that you guys have come to prioritize this opportunity over everything else that you could be doing with your time. See, I understand that some of you guys are here perhaps to increase your skills. Other people might be here just simply to get motivated and inspired. And some of you guys might be here just to get out of your house or away from your spouse. I don't really care why you're here, but the fact is that you're here, and that is special. And so for my own anxiety and what I like to do at the beginning of every speech, I like to take a deep breath and be grateful that we're all here in this moment together right now. So thank you again for coming. As you can see from this montage, I've been selling real estate for over 20 years. I thought it was really important at one point to put my full name with my middle initial on your business card, because that might make me seem older and more sophisticated. But I was originally licensed when I was 18 years old. I grew up in Eastern Connecticut. And my mother, who's here with us today, who's an incredibly successful real estate agent in her own right, the wonderful Sue Esposito, see, she was kind enough and gracious enough to allow me to sell real estate on her team when I would come home from summer and winter breaks. And I was always I felt very fortunate to have grown up in a real estate family, having a mentor in my mother that was so inspirational. She exposed me to what was possible at a very early age in my life, showing what could happen if I was hungry for knowledge, if I surrounded myself with powerful people, inspirational folks in the industry, and if I took this job seriously and this profession seriously. See, I never really lacked motivation for things that I wanted. Even when I was as young as I can remember, I was in the candy game when I was a kid. We had a local candy distributor in our hometown, and I used to go and I'd buy candy in bulk and I'd drop it off at local businesses, the Shoesmith downtown, and I'd sell it for a profit, and I'd take that profit, I'd reinvest it into other things. And that continued all the way into middle school. I was that kid that was running a virtual grocery store out of my locker. And when the school called home to my mother and told her about my burgeoning business, instead of being mad, she praised me for my entrepreneurial spirit. I really credit her for putting me on this path, showing me what was possible at the very early age, and guiding me to the point that I am right now. So thank you. I don't mean to imply just because the opportunity was there and I was sort of a young, motivated kid that sold candy out of my locker that everything has been easy. It's been interesting because when I graduated college after selling real estate with her, I actually went up to her and I told her, I said, Mom, I don't really want your life. I think I broke her heart when I told her that I thought she worked too hard. See, while I could see the opportunity was there, I had no perspective really about virtually anything. And so when I graduated, like any young punk, I went and got a sales job at a corporate office, and I did that for 2 or 3 years. And over the course of those 2 or 3 years, I really learned something invaluable about myself. See, I learned that my motivation, my ability to work hard, my ability to go after something with everything that I have was directly correlated to the size of the opportunity that was out there. And I realized through that experience that corporate sales was just never going to provide that opportunity. But this opportunity, the one that stands before all of us in this room, the ability and the opportunity to make hundreds of thousands of dollars, in some cases millions of dollars a year selling real estate, I determined with some perspective that that was worth my time. And I think we in this room need to constantly and perpetually say that to ourselves and really make the determination about whether it's worth your time going forward. And so in front of all of you as my witnesses, I just want to turn to my mother and say, Mom, you were right. I was wrong, proving once and for all that mothers are always right, and I will forever be her favorite child. In front of my sister in the back of the room. So really from that point until today, I've had the great fortune of being coached by some of the very best coaches and minds in the industry. I've collaborated and I've sat down, I've spent discernible time with really powerful people that sort of like, they think big, they're creative, but they also challenge ideas and topics. If I'm going in a particular direction, I've had people in my life that sort of smack me around, open my eyes up to what I'm doing and turn me into a direction, or at least open up the possibility of that. And I feel very, very fortunate to have been in that position. Because of that time that I've spent with these folks and the experiences that I've gained, I've noticed that there's 3 traits amongst all of these top producers that are sort of there regardless of how they've built their business. Because I know a lot of you have built really successful real estate businesses in different ways. I've seen folks prospect and cold call for massive success. I've seen people build relationship businesses through networking. And more recently, I've seen incredible businesses pop up through social media. It doesn't really matter the way that you build your business. While I do think that there are more profitable ones and ones that create wealth faster, what I've seen is that they can be created any different way. And these 3 traits that all of these top producers have been consistent over time. What you'll notice up on the screen, the 3 things that I've noticed: top producers seem to have a very strong work ethic. They show up every day. They value educating themselves and putting themselves in proximity to other powerful people. And they also have a maniacal focus on customer service. And not only to your clients, to the folks that you're helping buy and sell homes, but to the vendors that support what we do, to the other agents that we co-broke with. See, I've seen people focus and really master 1 or 2 of these, and they're good. But the folks that are great, they really prioritize, they really spend their time understanding these things. I believe that if you pay attention, if you focus on these things, you can go from good to great. So work ethic is it's a funny thing because it sort of seems simple on the surface, right? Just work hard. And while it's simple, I do think it's one of those traits that really gets developed when you give it time. Over time, you can build that work ethic, but I think for us to understand why it takes so much time and why it's so hard to develop, I think we have to understand why it is so hard in our industry, especially in real estate. And I think what it ultimately boils down to is lack of accountability. See, when we go out and we get our real estate license, we affiliate with a brokerage, right? We go and hang our license and we show up to our first day, but we very rarely will have a boss to tell us what time to be at the office, how many hours we have to work, what time we go home. And even unlike other small businesses that are created, we don't have to open up the doors to our bakery to let customers in. So we don't have to be there to do that. And in most cases, we don't have employees that we need to show up and push to get them motivated. So what it requires is it requires us to have an incredible amount of self-discipline. And self-discipline is difficult to have because ultimately self-discipline requires us to reflect in the moment on a day-to-day basis whether we're doing the activities that we set out to do, that we promised ourselves to do. And that's difficult because it's almost like it's holding up a mirror. It's making us reflect on what we're doing in that moment. And it's incredibly uncomfortable for us to do that. I mean, think about it, guys. Why do you think that why on Zoom calls do they have filters? Do you think that it's because anybody else is judging you on that Zoom call? Or do you think that it's a mirror that's being held up in front of you and it forces you to face the reality of what's going on? And we don't like it. It makes us uncomfortable, so we put a filter over it so we don't have to face the reality. See, I think it's really, really uncomfortable. I wrote down here, accountability will shine a spotlight on reality. It balances the pendulum of discomfort, making it more uncomfortable for us not to do the work than for us to do the work. I mean, let me illustrate the point. So imagine at the end of every day, you have no control over it, but on social media and an email goes out to your spouse or your parents or your kids, and it tells them exactly how much productive time you've had that day and how much unproductive time you've had that day. Automatically it went out. AI might provide that at some point if you guys want some accountability. But Ben Esposito up on social media had an hour and 15 minutes of productive time today. And we're not sure what the hell he did for 6 hours and 45 minutes. Right? Frown face emoji. By a show of hands in this room, how many of you, if that happened and you could not turn it off, how many of you would be forced to work harder on a day-to-day basis? Accountability creates hard work and work ethic. I believe that top producers really box themselves in. They create accountability at every turn. It forces them to develop a habit that is transferable to any other desire or pursuit you have in your life. And I was so fortunate, again, because of the exposure that I had, that I was exposed to this idea of accountability. So up on the screen, from 2014 until 2021, this is my schedule on a day-to-day basis. It moved me from a 5-figure income to a 7-figure income over that 7 years. A lot of the people in this room have been part of the accountability that I've had. But I realized that in order to create a habit, in order to create that strong work ethic, that I had to be consistent. And the only way that I was consistent was with this accountability. So every morning that I would wake up for 18 months, I would send a picture of myself in my gym clothes to an accountability partner. By 5 a.m. I had to do that. If not, I paid a $50 fine. And I want you guys to understand that the $50 fine at the time, like I didn't want to give up $50, but that wasn't the true value in it. The true value was that I had to physically write it. This was like before Venmo, right? But I had to physically write a check and I had to address an envelope and mail it in the mail. And the act of going through that process, that was uncomfortable to me. That was the physical issuance of the fact that I wasn't doing what I said I was going to do. I'd arrive at the office by 8 o'clock in the morning. Otherwise, it was a $50 fine. I had a phone at my office that had a date and a time on it. At 8 o'clock, I would get on the phones. 7:30 was the time that I would arrive. At 8 o'clock, I would get on the phones and I would prospect in a Google Hangout with 5 other guys and gals that were prospecting and cold calling. And if I showed up late, it was $50. If I got distracted and did work outside of prospecting, it was $50. If I left early, it was $50. I boxed myself in because I knew inherently, I knew this of myself. There's some self-disciplined folks out there and I admire them. I am not one of them. I needed somebody always to go, hey, you're not doing what you said you were going to do. A few years after I started prospecting, on the bottom, you'll see that my contact goal was 52 contacts a day. And that was born out of a relationship that I developed. Some of you guys might know Calla Riccardi and Susan Fisher, two wonderful real estate agents. And I was down at a prospecting clinic. If you don't know what those are, a prospecting clinic, you go to a place and everybody prospects between like 8 o'clock and 5 o'clock the entire day to set appointments. And I sat next to a woman who sold 180 homes personally every single year. And her daily contact goal, even doing all of that work, was 52 contacts. And I was in awe of this woman just setting appointment after appointment. So before we left for the day, I got her information. She was kind enough to let me into her book club. And I was like 27, 28, maybe 30 at the time. And I was by far the youngest kid in this book club. But over time, I formed a relationship with them. And Calla and Susan had this contact goal of 52 contacts. And so for 2 years straight, I had to do 52 contacts per day. And if I missed those contacts, any day, if I was sick, if I got 49, if I got 50, I would have to pay that fine. And for 2 years straight, the grand total that Susan and Calla paid was $0. They didn't miss one day. Ben Esposito paid $4,000 in fines the first year. But that was the first year that I made $500,000 in real estate. Massive accountability, guys. Box yourself in. By a show of hands in this room, how many people have an action item that they've been trying to get done, stay consistent with, that with massive accountability would help? If you look around this room, guys, from my vantage point, this is 90% of us. And the other 10% probably just are too introverted to answer. They're like, maybe that's me, maybe it's not. Everybody needs it. If you create massive accountability, we're in a room with motivated and enthusiastic people. In 20 minutes, we're going to go on a break and we're going to go over there. I encourage you, offer to provide accountability to somebody else. Ask for accountability for yourself. These are the things that will start to build that work ethic, that strength to do the things on a daily basis that you don't want to do. I don't care what the activity is. But if you commit to it and then you're held accountable for it, that's what moves everything forward. That's what can make the big change in your business. So when we talk about the value of education and collaboration, top producers that I've seen, they put themselves in rooms like this. And so I think everybody here has a massive leg up over the competition already. You've illustrated to yourself and to others that you're prioritizing this over all of the other things. I can't tell you how many people I talked to that were like, well, I'd love to come to your event, but I need to wait to see if there's any appointments that people are going to set up. So they see the value, but they don't prioritize it. Make a decision to actually go and spend your time. We have folks that have driven from New Jersey, from Connecticut, flown up from different areas of the country to show their commitment to educating themselves. They see the value in it. I think the reason that top producers understand this trait, I think the reason that they understand it is because what it does over time is it develops a confidence. If you're educating yourself, if you're around people that are doing what you want to do and they're showing you that it is successful and that it can be obtained, it builds a certain confidence in yourself, right? It allows taking that action, doing that activity. It makes it exponentially, guys, easier for you to do it if you're confident to do it. See, I think everyone in this room would agree that if I gave you a telephone number and I told you exactly what to say And I guaranteed you without a shadow of a doubt that if you made the call and said what I was going to say, that you would get a listing and get paid. I guarantee you that every single one of you would make that call because you would have the confidence to know that the result, the action that you take would create the result. These are the things that top producers understand. See, we've all heard this idea that knowledge equals confidence and ignorance equals fear, right? Knowledge equals confidence, ignorance equals fear. And as an analytical, and I know it drives my coaches crazy that I need to like dive in and understand it a little bit more. Yep. But I think the fear creates this discomfort, and you'll hear me talk about discomfort a lot because top producers tend to lean into discomfort, lean into things that are uncomfortable. And amateurs, what they do is as soon as it's uncomfortable, they stop. And in most cases, they turn around and run away. Fear and discomfort will keep us from taking action, guys. And I think it will worry us that it will expose us to what we don't know, the fact that we're unprepared. Top producers understand that learning and collaborating with other great minds will make it easier to take chances, to be comfortable with discomfort. So in that case, I think it's incumbent upon us to put ourselves in these positions, to learn and to be inspired by one another, to be in a room of people that all want to charge in the same direction. It makes it, guys, it makes it so much easier. Over the course of the last 10 years, I've spent well over $300,000 on coaching and training. 2 to 3 times a year, I would travel to events, right? Going to learn from some of the best minds in the industry. Being in proximity to people that expand my mindset. My first event, when I got back into real estate after breaking my mother's heart, my first event was up in Framingham, and it was a 2-day event. It was like 8 to 12 each day, and it was a prospecting sort of mastermind, and they gave me a script about expired listings. And they challenged us before we left that day to go out and to make 5 calls to expired listings. And liking a good challenge, I went home and I did exactly as I was told. I called 5 people, talked to 2. But one of them allowed me to come out and present to them. See, it gave me the confidence, the knowledge that they gave me. There was other people in this room that were going to go home and do it. So I felt more confident to go home and take action. I take action, and then I was hooked. I went back the next day at shoulder surgery a couple of years ago. I swear, I think I threw my arm out. I was in the front row when the guy asked who did it, and I was like, yep, I did it. Right? It gave me the confidence to move forward. And I think ultimately, the good news about education and collaboration, and the reason that top producers get it so obsessed with it, is because it has a domino effect. Right, so all those years back, my mother opened my eyes to the opportunity. And because she was involved in coaching and training, it showed me a roadmap. And so it inspired me to go to these events. And as soon as I started going to the events and being around people that were delivering knowledge and inspiring me, it was like they threw gasoline on the fire that burned for my success. And as soon as I got involved in this coaching organization, I was all in. Accountability groups, mastermind calls, book clubs, group role play sessions, everything. And at one of those group role play sessions, this is a funny story. So Greg Taylor, some of you guys know him in this room. Greg Taylor, a couple of years after I started prospecting, I joined a prospecting group, and every week I would get paired with a new person to practice my scripts between 7:30 and 8 o'clock in the morning. And I came in and I had some success prospecting, and I came into the call, I got paired with Greg Taylor the first week. I sort of came in there sort of confident, cocky a little bit. And so when Greg says, do you want to go first or do you want to go second? I was like, well, I don't want to embarrass him. So why don't you go first so you're not. For the next 15 minutes, this man schooled me. I swear if he had turned the conversation and been like, Ben, do you actually want to sell your house? I would have been like, yeah, fair, here, sure. My jaw was on the floor with how good he was. And of course, then he says, all right, Ben, why don't you do the expired script? And I'm not sure what I muttered for the next 60 to 90 seconds, but at one point, Greg literally just goes, hey, Ben, stop. And I was like, oh, thank God. And he's like, why don't we start over a little bit? Right? But this domino effect of putting me in a position to join this role play group and then get my mind exposed to what was possible, how good I could get, because I thought I was good at that point. But then I see what good could be. So a few years later, after my wonderful coach, Kathy Anderson, retired, I was in search of a new coach. And Aaron Novello, who's going to speak later today, he had done like a mindset call for this role play group. I didn't know Aaron personally, but Greg was good friends with him. And so Greg made an introduction and we jumped on a Zoom call. And for the past 4 years, I've been coached by Aaron Novello. And to say he has changed my life is an understatement. See, he commonly will say that you are one relationship away from drastically changing the trajectory of your life. And that relationship, that one relationship for me, was the catalyst behind why I'm standing in front of you today. And then Aaron introduced me to the opportunity that was there at EXP. And then EXP put me in proximity to Tina. Tina, who's going to be speaking to you guys next. I still can't quite believe that her and Aaron came up for this event. But I knew that she would be at. Aaron invited me to this event earlier this year in Dallas. It was a top producers event that I didn't qualify individually for, but Aaron brought me because that's the kind of guy he is. And I knew Tina would be at this event. And as an introvert, like making new conversations is very difficult for me. But I knew that she would be there, so I showed up super early, hoping that she would be the second person in the room, and it would just be naturally for me to meet her. And I spent that entire day, I haven't told Tina this story too, so this is probably funny for her, but I spent the whole day trying to get to talk to her. But every time a break would happen, because of how powerful she is, everybody kind of rushes over to Tina and wants to talk to her. And I don't like to, sort of butt in, but there was like 2 or 3 minutes left on the last break of the day, and I knew I only had one more shot. So I sort of nudged myself in and she made eye contact with me. And again, I think I said something along the lines of, Tina, you probably don't want to do this, and I don't know if you would ever consider it, but I'm up in Boston and I'm going to do an event and it's going to be really great. We're going to have probably 100 people there, but I don't know if you would ever consider it. And she just looked at me and she goes, I love Boston. Why don't you send me some information about it? And if I have time in my schedule, I'll come. Being exposed by my mother to the opportunity that's out there, to the value of education and collaboration, put me in touch with this coaching organization. The coaching organization opened my eyes up to what was possible. Accountability groups, role play, masterminds. From there, I met Greg, and from Greg, I met Aaron. From Aaron, I met EXP to Tina. This stuff has a true domino effect. I know a lot of people in this room because of these relationships that are formed over time. See, we assume, guys, that we can just stay in our houses and be motivated and self-discipline, have enough self-discipline to go out and consume information and then put it into action. That is a very, very difficult thing to do. But if you prioritize education, if you understand the value of collaborating with other amazing, powerful people, you can go from good to great. You can accomplish what you want. You're one relationship away from changing the trajectory of your life. I would encourage you to find people that inspire you, whether that's me today, whether that's Tina, whether that's Aaron, whether you meet somebody in this room, or even if it's not. If somebody inspires you, stay sticky. Consume their information. All of you introverts, find an extrovert to introduce you to somebody that you think is powerful. I would just hover around the room. My friend Jerry over there is an extrovert. He's really loud, so I used to hang out with him at all the conferences because he'd go up to anybody and talk to him. And I just kind of tag along in the background. And as soon as the introduction was done, I was great. There are motivated and enthusiastic people in this room. Folks that really want to grow their businesses. It is incumbent upon you to take that first step, to put yourself out there. And then once you make that relationship, you don't live in the same town. You don't see these people all the time. You have to put effort and energy into it. I would also say just prioritize, guys. Prioritize those folks that actually create this desire to go and take action. Because we can fool ourselves by consuming a ton of information, especially right now. We're in an age that there's no lack of information out there. Everybody on social media and YouTube is going to tell you exactly what you can do to become successful. But recognize whether consuming that information that you hear is actually causing you to take a step forward, to do the work that you want to do. If it's not, then you need to find somebody that actually motivates you to take those steps. Again, we're going to be in like 5 minutes, we're going to be on break. Who in this room would inspire you? Who in this room would hold you accountable? Who could you hold accountable? It's a little bit surreal for me to be up on stage here. For years, I used to attend these events and I would sit in the seats and I would see at most of these events, they'd have top producer panels. And I was always sort of inspired by these men and women who would get up on stage and share their secrets, be so open and vulnerable about what has worked and what hasn't. And I mentioned to my coach, Kathy, one time, I said, Kathy, I really want to be one of those people. I want to earn the right to be up on stage, which is interesting because as an introvert, it makes me wildly uncomfortable to talk in front of people. I mean, I'm wildly uncomfortable right now, but I'm doing it because of what I've been exposed to. See, those folks up on stage, they seemingly had it all, right? They had the money, they had the houses and the cars, they had the fancy watches, they provided for their families. But what I always noticed about them was that there was a sense of confidence in relaying the information. And I believe that that confidence was developed over time through hard work, through prioritizing the education so they can be confident to say what they mean to say and do what they said they were going to do. Those things are so important. Earl Nightingale, before I go into Earl Nightingale, I was going to talk about customer service, but I have like 3 minutes left. So if you'd like all of my notes on customer service, you can jump on, take a picture of this QR code. I'll email you all of my information on customer service. At the same time, I do a virtual group coaching call on Thursdays at 12:30. For the next month, we're going to be reviewing the takeaways from this event. We're going to be forming those accountability partners, and we're going to be going over these 3 topics in more detail. Because to be honest with you, the first time I ran through each of these segments, I could talk for 30 or 40 minutes without blinking an eye on each one of these. I had to condense it down a little bit for this, but I'll send you all of my notes. And if you'd like to jump on that coaching call, it's absolutely free for a month. The next 4 sessions, you guys are welcome to jump on those calls. Earl Nightingale said that success is the progressive realization of a worthwhile goal or objective. Again, the progressive realization of a worthwhile goal or objective. And for years, my goal was to provide for my family, to have a good life, a life of abundance. But what I've learned over time is the fact that the progressive realization, the fact that it takes time to develop, that's the true value. I encourage you guys again, prioritize educating yourself, putting yourself into proximity with powerful people. There are those people in this room today. Over time, that will develop a really strong work ethic. And the beauty is that that skill is transferable. It is not exclusive to the real estate industry. So if you build financial freedom, if you create a life of abundance where you can help and impact other human beings, and you decide that you want to go into another pursuit or desire, you can take these skills. They're not exclusive to real estate, but developing them, having them take time, will build that confidence. And if you throw on top of it staying accountability, keeping yourself on track, it will fast forward all of that progress. So if you're needing an accountability partner, find somebody in this room. If somebody feels if you get inspired by somebody, connect with them and stay in touch. And if you feel motivated, motivation is fleeting. It comes and it goes. Capitalize on the motivation. Make a decision. Take a step forward right now. Because as I look at this entire room, I would bet on every single one of you. But just because I bet on you doesn't force you to take that next step. You're going to hear some incredible things from Tina and some incredible things from Aaron today. You're going to have great, motivating, and inspiring conversations with one another. Take those steps. Make it happen right now. And I promise you, when we all sit here a year from now at this event next year, you'll look at this day, this moment in time, as perhaps the time that actually changed everything. Thank you again for coming, guys.